earlier this week, I think it was immediately after the Celtics game during JB's press conference, he had mentioned that starting is a privilege. So obviously, the starting lineup this year, there have been ups and downs with it. If you did have to make one change to it, what would it be, and which player would you substitute into the starting lineup?
Pretty easy for me. It's Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. I feel like, and I was talking with Koo about this. There is a question of, if Isaiah Stewart's really thriving in this bench role, do you want to risk, changing that? Yes, I think you do. Because I do believe in one of the games, he started when Duren was out, and I thought the impact was just about the same. And I feel as if Jalen Duren right now, he provides vertical spacing and he can be a roll man. That's about it on offense. You don't really want the ball in his hands in terms of playmaking, which has been actually a pro for him, in years before. Not really so much this year. He's had quite a few costly turnovers. Feels as if he's being more careless with the basketball. Sometimes feel as if he gets a little bit of tunnel vision or trying to make too many flashy passes. And then I think more than anything, the issue with Jalen Duren thus far has been effort. Um, we talk about the concern about his ankles and things like that when it came to his defense last year, but this year there is no reported ankle injuries. He seems to be fine. He just doesn't seem to play every single possession the exact same way. Um, it's to be expected, man. Like, he's young and he just turned 21. He's incredibly young, and starting is a privilege. And I really do feel as if him kind of having to readjust coming from the bench, it shouldn't be looked at as like a demotion, and it shouldn't be looked at as like the Pistons are giving up on Jalen Duren, because I don't think that's what it is. And if that does happen, it's not that's not at all what it is. I really feel like it is prove it. Like, you've been given the keys to be kind of the franchise center thus far. Right now, you're not playing like it. And, if it's a thing where you're missing shots or, you make mistakes here and there, I don't think that's anything that's like, okay, we got to move you to the bench. To me, it's the effort. And when you're young, effort cannot be an issue. And I think it was Brian Scalabrine that mentioned this on the Celtics broadcast a few nights ago. You just can't be young and lacking manpower against stronger teams like a Boston, and also lack in terms of effort. If you're going to be a young scrappy team, you got to punch dudes in the fucking mouth. Like, that's really what it is. Like, Jalen Duren is someone that has all the physical tools, and he is genuinely a gifted basketball player. He really just needs to put it together, like, in terms of the mental aspect of the game. And I don't know what it is for him. Like, I don't know what that missing piece is, but if it takes kind of just like a push in terms of, hey, we're putting you on the bench, and he has to be the energy guy on this team. I think that maybe gets you to putting Jalen Duren back in the starting lineup towards the end of the season. And I also think Isaiah Stewart has earned a starting position for the time being, because he's played his ass off. He's been an incredible defender. Offensively, he's done pretty much everything he can. I think talk about culture, like, that's always been a thing for him. And I also just feel as if he gives other teams a very hard time, and that's hard to replicate. And when he comes in, I forgot the stat, but I believe their net rating is about 6 or 7 points higher when Isaiah Stewart is on the court versus off. Objectively, he is the better player right now. And as a result, I don't believe he should be coming off the bench. And I don't think you should be in a position where you need to make up for a deficit, or make up for the lacks, or for the lapses that Duren has. Duren kind of has to be in a position moving forward where he comes in and he cleans up, and he has to be the energy guy, and he has to try in the defensive possessions that he gets. And I also think that, in all honesty, like, when you're coming off the bench, you're probably not guarding the other team's best center right out the gate. maybe that helps build defensive reps, because every night he's guarding, whether it be a Kristaps Porzingis or whether it be he didn't play last night, but a Karl Anthony Towns, like maybe he needs to take a second and readjust on defense. And maybe that means guarding, the second unit's bench bigs versus the first units. Whatever it is, I do feel as if that's a move that really needs to happen sooner than later.
I was talking with Mike from Driving to the Basket. I was on his podcast this week. We're talking about Duren. We talked about him for like 15 minutes. And something I told him was like, when Dwayne Casey was here, Duren didn't automatically start. If you remember, Isaiah Stewart was starting for probably the first 30 or so games until Dwayne kind of gave him the keys to start. And like during his rookie year, obviously he was giving effort, communicating, wasn't blocking shots, but he was bothering shots. I thought last year's he developed so much bad habits under Monty Williams defensively, where there were no repercussions if he missed an assignment, if he missed the closeout, if he wasn't protecting the rim. They kind of just let him do whatever he wanted. And I think it's kind of carried over to this season under JB Bickerstaff. And I was having conversations about this with, some people. I think Duren is definitely a player that I think I like, but the effort just isn't consistent. Like the Milwaukee Bucks game, for the first 5 minutes, he was locked in. Like he was actually, bothering shots. He was blocking shots. He was involved. And then the effort was just gone. Like it completely disappeared. And my only thing is like kind of the body language right now. He doesn't seem like he's having a good time. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but at times it seems like he wants to kind of be like point Duren, if you will. It seems like he's way more engaged when he does have the basketball in his hands. And when he doesn't, or, Kate's not throwing him lobs, he seems really disengaged. And I don't know if it's something where he feels that he should be involved in the offense more, or maybe I'm just reading too much into it. I also saw some people mention Tim Hardaway Jr. for Malik Beasley as a possible swap at small forward. Obviously, when Asar does get healthy, maybe he gets that starting small forward spot. I don't know. I think, Asar's maybe another 2-3 weeks until like his conditioning is back up, and he's got to, come back from an injury that he just suffered, which I didn't even know he had an injury until yesterday's game. But I do agree with you with your Jalen Duren assessment.
Yeah, and I do think Asar making a move into the starting lineup is probably realistically, I don't think that's something that happens this season. Just because it's going to take him a while to kind of set back into playing full NBA minutes and, getting his body more used to that. And I also think that right now this team isn't constructed to replace the spacing, because, Tim Hardaway, since the injury, hasn't really been the same impact player that he was before, but having the threat of spacing is still really valuable. And putting Tim Hardaway in that lineup does provide them with spacing. And if you put in Asar Thompson in that lineup, it automatically kind of hurts. And I know his shot does look better early on this season, but it's not a guarantee that it's going at a respectable rate. And Ivy's shot isn't where it could be, where it's like, okay, like they can survive Cade, Ivy, Asar minutes. And Tobias also hasn't really been as reliable of a 3-point shooter this year. So I really feel as if they can't put Asar in the starting lineup this year, but I do believe eventually that'll be the move. And I was thinking about the Malik Beasley for Tim Hardaway swap. That's also something I think could happen just because of the impact that Malik has had. And I think just having him in there as soon as possible is great for your offense. It's just a matter of, do you get those bench scoring minutes? Is that something that you can really replace? Because we talked about starter minutes versus bench minutes. I think Malik plays like a starter role on this team. He just doesn't happen to be in the starting lineup. But I do believe that is something that's worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, I mean, some people are calling him like the 2024 version of the microwave of like Vinnie Johnson, which is both before our times, because I wasn't born in the 80s, and I know you weren't either. But I mean, you can watch highlights. Like Vinnie Johnson was a bucket. I think Malik kind of has that same effect. He had like 12 points in the first quarter, and the Knicks were just like completely shocked.
Yeah, I I can't imagine him going anywhere else for a few years now. Like it feels like he's really found a home in Detroit.